In this video, we're going to break down one of the biggest myths, illusions, and stumbling blocks that is so prevalent and predominant in our world today. It's something which keeps a lot of people stuck, something which wastes a lot of time, energy, and resources. And we can understand this and call this the paralysis of analysis, or the myth that giving something a name or a label necessarily equals understanding it or being able to actually explain it, or even actually being present to the real dynamic of that situation. This is an idea which underlies a lot of mainstream medicine and even a lot of alternative or holistic medicine. And this really sets up the sort of one-size-fits-all kind of treatments, meaning you walk into a practitioner or you walk into a doctor's office and they have their little clipboard and you fill it out, you fill out your symptoms, and they come out and say, oh, looks like you have this, so I'm going to give you that. That'll be $150. Here's your prescription, here's your bottle, here's your pills, I'll see you later. And that oftentimes is not very effective, which just look at statistical information that's available right now, look at history, look at really just the world around us, and we can easily observe, yeah, maybe it's not so effective. Because let's say anxiety, for example, or erectile dysfunction, or sexual dysfunction. A person can have any of those things for a lot of different reasons. And by coming in and saying, oh, well, you have X, so here's Y, and we're done. That's a good first step, but we really need to get more present to the actual dynamic of the situation and really look at the person, understand the situation in the context. Sometimes it's something that's really simple and really obvious. Sometimes it's a little bit more complex and it takes a little bit more time. But really, it's about being present and not being so caught up in this make-believe world that is a symbolic conceptual reality. And on an individual level, how this often plays out is people get identified with a thing, with a label, and then look for a thing to get rid of the label. But both things are just stuck in the mental world and are all about just analyzing A plus B equals C and breaking down all these different facts and datas and figures. And there is value to that, yes, obviously. The question is more so as how present is that person to their actual body awareness? How present are we to the real dynamic of the situation, the real dynamic of the narrative that we're telling? So for example, anxiety. A person might say, oh, I've got anxiety, I need a pill to get rid of it. Okay, well, what do you mean by anxiety? When do you feel it? Where do you feel it? How do you feel it? How strongly? How strongly in what situations? Where does it manifest? In the head? In the heart? In the stomach? In the lower abdomen? Somewhere else? Is it only in certain situations? When did it start happening? How long has it been happening? And we can just go on and on and on and on with questions that might really lead us to a point where we see, oh yeah, really what we think is this thing over here might actually be this thing over here. Makes much more sense, much more simple. But the point that we're making here is that if we're so hypnotized by this label over here and this thing over here, then we're not going to really dig down a little bit deeper and start to maybe understand the real dynamic or the real presence of the situation, meaning the felt experience, meaning the real reality of it, not just our stress response or our fight or flight response or our sense of being a hypochondriac or self-diagnosis or whatever. And the reason this is so valid and relevant today is because there's just a massive amount of information that we can take in at any given point, at any given time. Through the internet, through YouTube, through so many different resources, there's so much information available. And what happens is people get really into what they have and they spend all this time understanding it. So for example, someone has anxiety. They read columns about anxiety. They read stories about other people that have anxiety. And they read stories about how people have anxiety in different situations. They're spending all this time talking about, I have anxiety, they have anxiety, this is anxiety. But what's missing is, well, what about calm? What about peace? What about learning how to feel good? What about learning how to relax? What about learning how to deal with stress and handle stress? What about learning to optimize our diet and keep our blood sugar more even and stable? What about exercising more? What about actually cultivating the solution or the opposite state? Meaning if anxiety is over here, maybe we want to cultivate how to feel more calm and relaxed, more peaceful, more relaxed, and more grounded. So hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully it's been helpful. It's about 95 degrees right now, and that's all I have to say in this video. Thanks for watching, and I will talk to you soon.